Today's episode of the Bill Simmons Podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network, brought to you by SeatGeek. That's our presenting sponsor. The easiest way to shop for the best tickets, thanks to their revolutionary grading system. Football fans, I keep telling you, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase on NFL tickets. Use promo code BSNFL. Download the SeatGeek app today or go right to SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by Gillette. Did you know a Gillette razor blade edge is thinner than a single brain cell? Oh, it's true. That's the product of many brain cells at work, namely the thousands of men and women at Gillette, always working harder to make your shave better. And now you can get Gillette blades for less at GilletteOnDemand.com. Gillette, the best a man can get. Pricing applies to select products and is at the sole discretion of the retailer. We are brought to you by TheRinger.com. That's where you can find my football/mailbag column every Friday. And we're brought to you by The Rewatchables. That's our new movie podcast where we rewatch movies that we've already watched 40 times. Then we break them down. Last week, we did... What did we do last week, Tate?
Silence of the Lambs, right?
Silence of the Lambs. She a big fat person. Oh, yeah, we broke that down. This week, we have Speed. That's coming up. It was an honorable mention. It wasn't a Hall of Famer, but it was an honorable mention. But it's a classic. It's a classic action movie. It's on all the time. And after tomorrow, you will know all my thoughts on Speed because I have a lot of them. Anyway, The Rewatchables. Check that one out. Don't forget to check out the Ringer NFL show, which is heated up with 4 podcasts a week, including 2 that are hosted by Tate Frazier and Mike Lombardi. One caveat on that podcast, we're putting the ones with Tate and Mike up on Sunday night, right after the games. You can get the kind of the instant takes. Good times all the way around. All right. Coming up, we have Nathan Fielder, Comedy Central star of Nathan For You. And then also Mike Lombardi, the aforementioned Lombardi. We're going to talk about anything we've learned after 2 weeks in the NFL. That's coming up around like the hour mark of this podcast. Right now, Nathan Fielder, but first, Pearl Jam. All right, Nathan Fielder is in the office. This is our 3rd podcast. We've done 2 at Grantland, and then you disappeared. You were attacked by wolves, and nobody saw you for 2 years. What happened?
I was kind of waiting for you to restructure and get things going
ready to
with
go?
The Ringer.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I kind of have loyalty to you, so I wanted to make sure you were all settled, and because I was also unsure if, it was going to be good.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Because
we weren't either.
Grantland was so cool.
Thank you.
And such a cool office in the ESPN building. And then, when sometimes people will try things new and it fails. So I wanted to make sure it'd be a success before, attaching my name to it.
I've had that happen too. Yeah.
Yeah.
2013.
Well,
that's when your show launched.
Oh, yeah.
I think I was the first one on the bandwagon. I had you on my podcast, and nobody knew what the show was or who you were. I don't feel like
you were the first on the bandwagon. I think our first episode aired, and you called up Lewis, who's
I did
a publicist,
my longtime friend,
right? And you were like, "I want Nathan on the podcast."
Yes,
and at the time, no one knew what the show was. It wasn't even being widely promoted or anything.
It was not. And
I also didn't know who you were.
Yeah, because you're Canadian. I need to grow my Canadian audience.
And I'm also not a big sports.
Right.
But I did the podcast, and then all these, it was the most exposure I had. All these people were coming out of the woodworks and were like, I can't believe you were on Bill Simmons' podcast. And I was
wow,
I didn't
that's
know
nice to hear.
Yeah, it was a ton of people.
That's great.
People were more excited about that than the fact that I made a TV show. I swear, it was really weird. But you were the first.
Yeah, I saw one. Did I know that you represented him, Lewis? I think you were like, this is my guy. And I saw one. And I was like, what is this? I want to see all of these. And then I just knew. Sometimes
That was
I'm
great.
wrong a lot, but sometimes, but what I was worried about.
I appreciate it so much.
I think we even discussed this in the first podcast. I could tell how long it took for you to do 8 episodes and how grueling it was. And that was my concern. I was like, I don't know if he can sustain this, to pump out 8 to 10 every 10 to 11 months. So you've done 3 seasons.
Yeah, we've done 3 and the 4th starts this week.
Right.
Yeah.
It starts.
Well, we're starting
Thursday.
This Thursday. We have an hour-long special called Nathan for You, a Celebration.
I watched half of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I meant to watch all of it, but it's a long story.
Boring.
No, there was
Yeah,
some parent stuff. You don't understand what it's like to have a 12-year-old daughter. There was some homework that needed to be helped, and then I was tired. But I got the gist of it, and it was nice to catch up with the characters.
It's fine, yeah, and you can finish it anytime.
I figured I had time.
So, anyways, that episode is kind of like we follow up with people and stories from the show in the past and things that have happened behind the scenes since. And
people kind of seemed eager to redeem themselves a little bit, just a tiny bit.
Yeah, I guess there was a sense of that,
especially the first guy.
The host.
Well, the host, really wanted to clear up the threesome.
Yes, it's hosted by Anthony Napoli,
right?
Which. For those who have seen the show, in season 1, I did a fake dating show called The Hunk, and I was trying to overcome my fear of nervousness around women using kind of immersion therapy by dating a lot of women at once. But I hired some guy to host it, and he thought it was a real dating show that he was hosting.
Yeah.
And so we invited him back to host this hour-long special.
But he really wanted to clear up the threesome story.
Well,
it seemed like that was his biggest agenda.
He said he had a threesome in the first one, and and we also felt like, even going into this, we were like, well, that's not something we want to go into. That's like old news. And he just launched into it right at the beginning. And so, I guess you'll see how that plays out.
So what did you think was the tipping point for when this show... When the right people were going crazy about it? Was it dumb Starbucks, or did it happen sooner?
Well, it's kind of been a gradual, a steady kind of increase.
Yeah.
Different people kind of seem to, I don't know if, different people, you kind of came onto it early, and then throughout season 1, I think more and more people got into it. And then dumb Starbucks was a thing where I guess we got lots of exposure.
Yeah, that was the biggest press kind of barrage.
Yeah, because it kind of went outside of the comedy world, I guess, as well. And so we got a lot of attention from that. And then, then last season there was a lot, we got a lot. I think it just has increased in a nice way. Our goal with the show is always to do things where even if you've seen every episode, you'll still be surprised at every turn. So that, that's, I guess our I feel like we haven't lost viewers. We just keep growing, which is our goal. We don't want people to get bored of the show.
There's not that many episodes, which helps.
Right.
It feels like a treat when it returns.
That's a marketing tactic.
I
keep something rare and exclusive. You put out you put out an episode every week, right? Or
I do 3, and
3
a
week.
Probably,
right.
I think people take me for granted.
So because of that, no one sees it as that special. It's just Bill, it's just Bill
here's
talking.
Another one. Yeah.
So we have a different approach.
Did you think about the binge watch era and how that might change your show, and whether you should just release 8 at once and just
That's
flood
not my
people?
call.
Yeah. Would you want to do that or no? In a different world?
I don't, it's hard to know what is, it's also, I do think with Nathan for You, that the show is really dense.
Yeah.
There's a lot that happens in every episode. So I do wonder if you're watching a bunch back to back, if it would be kind of overwhelming.
See, that's my argument.
Maybe
I would
it's
say
nice
no.
to have a week in between. But
I think
with
it
the
is.
binging, you can on Netflix, you can choose, right? You can pick if you watch one or not.
the best binge watch shows on Netflix.
Like you just watched half an episode and you only had one.
I'm gonna finish it. It's I saw half and I'm gonna finish it. I've
So
seen every
even
minute
though,
of every show.
You couldn't binge one. So,
But if you did like the Riverdale model for your show, where it was kind of people could half watch it, I feel
what's the Riverdale model?
Well, Riverdale's like there's Riverdale, there's Bloodline. Some of these Netflix shows, they're what was the 13 Reasons Why? These are all shows that were 8 episodes stretched out over 13.
Oh.
So you could kind of half watch and stuff would happen, but you never were like on the edge of your seat. It wasn't like Breaking Bad where every decision for every scene was made carefully, which is what you're doing with this show.
Breaking Bad would have been a great one, I feel like, for binge watching, right?
Well, so yes and no, because I caught up late to it.
Same
2013.
with me. And I watched them all.
But here's
really
the problem.
quick.
They're too addictive, and you're watching. I remember I was in Miami for the finals for NBA because I was on the studio crew, and I was trying to catch up to when the show came back, and I was falling asleep watching them on my iPad.
Well, that's
and
a
then
time
having like
management
crazy
thing
dreams because it's like a show about this crazy meth dealer, and then I was like disoriented the next morning.
That's the argument against binge watching.
That's one of the arguments. Yes,
you'll watch it while you start sleeping,
right,
and it'll affect your dreams.
Yeah,
and I think that could bring down Netflix. Because no one wants nightmares.
Yeah, no, it's part of another part of their motto is they just keep rolling the shows. So you can fall asleep and the next one will start. And you can be 4 a.m. and it's 4 episodes later and it's just this cacophony in the background. Anyway, I like the once a week. Yeah, it's a dense show. It's good. It comes. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's an old school model that works for this one.
Yeah, I think the ones that are together are like better when it's one story that continues.
Right. All right. So since the last time we talked,
you don't want to talk about binge watching anymore?
No, I have an agenda.
Oh, okay.
Since the last time we talked, you learned. We haven't talked since you did the Walk Across the Wire episode,
right?
Which you trained for 9 months.
Yes.
Which I didn't realize.
Yes.
I figured it was something because you have kind of weird passions. I figured it was something
I have like fancy hobbies, like
and
magic,
you're like a magician, and you have all these other little things you're good at. I figured like at some point you were walking a wire in like the 8th grade and learned how to do it, but no.
Well, I mean, no, I'm not very like. Look at my body. You know? When we were coming up with that episode, that was actually an idea we had in the second season of the show, and we didn't really have the resources or time to execute it properly, so we like put it on hold. And when we started to do the third season, we were like, okay, we knew we wanted to do that. Yeah. So we had kind of thought about it, and I started training like very early. But in the initial discussions, I remember we talked for a while about there's got to be a way to do this where I don't have to be the one wire walking, because it's such a waste of time for such a small, like it's one part of one episode. And to learn this is like everyone we talked to, they were saying like it takes like 2 or 3 years to kind of really do it at that scale where you can do that. And so we couldn't figure out a funnier way or another way to do it. So I just started working at it, and I started like doing it while we were shooting and writing. I would like train on the weekends.
Isn't that what makes the show great though? Is that you went all in on this one event that was a small part of one episode, and you spent 9 months training to do it? Yeah,
I
and that's
do.
kind of the secret sauce there.
Yeah. And it was also in a weird way, because I'm in my head a lot. I feel like, I'm distracted. And when you're wire walking, you can't think of anything else. Like if your mind starts to wander, you'll fall. So it was actually really good. It was I started to enjoy it as like a therapeutic thing, just to be in the moment.
It's like meditation.
It was almost like meditation in a weird way. And so, and it became this kind of thing where it's just like, it's so frustrating at first because it seems so simple, like you just want to get across a small wire that's a couple feet off the ground at first, and I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't. And it just becomes this thing where it's like a very clear challenge, and you just want to get better at it, and you see yourself kind of getting better. So it feels like very satisfying because it's like a clear goal.
So what can come out of this now? You have this
skill,
this unique skill that I've never met anyone who can do this.
Nothing. I can't do anything with it.
Well, I think you could walk between high buildings. That could be the next thing.
Well, I have
maybe you're like the man on a wire guy. Maybe
you mean try to do it at like
I mean, maybe you just become the greatest. Who do you have to beat? There's like 9 people you'd have to beat.
You're right. I guess there aren't that many.
You're halfway
people,
there.
right?
You did most of the work already.
Who's the guy that does it? Willenda.
He probably died. One of them died.
Well, his grandpa died.
Yeah.
They always show that at the beginning of his specials. His grandpa's. They show his grandpa dying.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I might have watched
at the beginning, but like when he's doing, because he did like the Grand Canyon or something.
Yeah.
And they show his grandpa falling to his death at the beginning to kind of establish the stakes. Is that weird?
I think it kind of sets the proper amount of tension. It was like, this guy's family member died and now he's going to try to do it.
Like, is it like, should you show then like someone getting like hit in football and like getting carried off in a stretcher at the beginning of the game,
or
like to kind of be like, oh, you could die.
Yeah, watch this car crash before.
Right.
Like you're right. Die. I guess that is weird.
But
last time you were on, we talked about magic, which I want to get
everything to him and whatever he's doing.
We talked about magic, but this whole like walking a wire and stuff. I've always thought that the daredevil, the big stunts, the guy. I grew up with Evel Knievel on Wide World of Sports, and Evel Knievel is going to jump over 32 trucks, and he's going to try to jump across Snake Canyon, and the stuff always works. They did ESPN did a Vegas New Year's jump a couple times where the free fall bike jump, and they always seem to work. And I wonder, why do you think there's not more of them? Aren't there
what
more?
Do you mean they seem to work, meaning no one dies, or like
I
lot
think
of people watch them?
It seems like it becomes relevant for an hour.
I love those big spectacle events.
We need another Evel Knievel, I guess is my point.
Yeah, because they have the tightrope guy, and there was Michael Phelps just did that thing that was
he raced a shark. I watched the whole thing. It was terrible. I watched it though.
So they kind of promoted it like he was going to race a shark.
Yeah, he did.
It was called like Phelps versus shark, right, or something.
That's what it was called.
And then the entire special, they're very careful with their wording as to kind of like what's going to happen. They're kind of like, he will race a shark's speed or something like that. Like they use weird wording. And then at the end, he just raced a cartoon it was like an animated Disney shark.
There was not a lot of fear from the viewer watching it.
Right. And they like made it like jump and do tricks.
Yeah.
Like it was really weird.
Yeah. And I think it got a good rating somehow, which brings me back to my point.
Because they made it seem like he was going to race a shark.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they've done a lot of those, like the guy with, did you see the Eaten Alive? The guy that said he was going to get eaten by an anaconda?
No. How did I miss it?
I don't know. That was like, I mean, I had like a group get together to watch that one.
Did the anaconda swallow him?
So the idea was, he said like he's going to get swallowed by an anaconda and then like be in its belly. That was the special. And it was like the best premise for any special I've seen. I think it was actually happening while we were working on that wire walking episode. And basically the snake, he got put in all this like hockey gear, like so like a helmet,
That's smart.
you know, all that, so he's safe. And then the second the snake like started to bite his helmet, he was like, "Oh no, it hurts," and then he stopped.
Was it live?
No.
Oh, so that was it? He just stopped and the show's over?
No, it wasn't live.
This sounds terrible.
Yeah, and they had all this buildup where they found a snake in the, they always have to fill this stuff with like facts and information.
Because we all want to know more about anacondas.
Yeah, but it definitely didn't pay off.
Quick break to talk about a perfect mattress that's sold directly to consumers, an obsessively engineered mattress at a shockingly fair price. A mattress that has supportive memory foams that create an award-winning sleep service with just the right sink and just the right bounce. I am talking about Casper mattresses. Try Casper for 100 nights risk-free in your own home. If you don't love it, they'll pick it up and refund you everything. Casper understands the importance of truly sleeping on a mattress before you commit, especially considering you're going to spend a third of your life on it. They offer free shipping and returns to US and Canada. Again, Casper will deliver your mattress to you risk-free. Try it for 100 days. If you're not happy, they'll pick it back up. They're guessing you'll be happy because they have tens of thousand reviews and an average of 4.8 stars of all kinds of good stuff. It's quickly becoming the internet's favorite mattress. I think it already happened. I think that actually happened like 2 years ago. Anyway, find out why so many people love Casper. Get $50 toward any mattress purchase by visiting Casper.com/BS. Use offer code BS. Terms and conditions apply. Back to Nathan Fielder. Since the last time you were on, David Blaine had his special with the celebrities.
Right. He did another magic one.
Where he freaked out basically all of these famous people.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. It was one of the best shows I've seen on network TV in like 5 years.
Yeah, I really liked his last special because he had some... he kind of started to do really... The stunts got really big to the point where they, because he did one where he was like hanging upside down for a few days, but he took a break every hour. So you're kind of like, what is this?
Yeah.
But he kind of took it back to kind of this type of magic where it's just a long shot where the camera holds on a wide shot. There's no like cuts. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really, and he did stuff that's kind of a mix of magic and stuff that he's just crazy enough to really do.
The reactions from the celebs were fantastic too. Like it brought out this genuine Will Smith, Jada Pinkett reaction / relationship where I felt like, oh, this is cool. This is who they actually are, not like the people who go on talk shows. Yeah. So after that show happened, I was like, Nathan was in. He said it on the podcast. Well, you did too, but you predicted on the podcast. I would love
to see Will Smith react to Nathan
to anything.
Just a blank face.
I wonder if it's on his radar.
Speaking of Will Smith, I actually learned about like steampunk in the past year.
What's
I didn't know. Do you know what steampunk is?
No.
So have you seen that Will Smith movie like Wild Wild West?
Unfortunately once and never again.
So that's steampunk apparently, where it's like old fashioned but futuristic at the same time.
Yep.
And there's a whole world of steampunk people that kind of create their own things, and it's metal. It's like, those goggles, like those old fashioned like goggles.
Yeah.
And then, but it's also futurist. I don't know how to explain it, but each steampunk, I guess, has like, you're supposed to develop your steampunk personality, and it's called your steamsona.
What is going on? I never heard any of this.
Wait,
I feel like you're making this up.
No. Will you Google steampunk and just show Bill like some of the images that
Google
come up?
steampunk. Is this
you'll recognize the aesthetic, but that's what like Wild. But there's a whole world and culture about. Like this guy. Will you turn it a little more?
Yeah.
Wait, I can't see. Have you seen people dress like that sometimes, or?
No.
It's probably the furthest thing from the sports world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in that. Even that Comic-Con is a little too far out there for me.
And there's a steampunk band called Steam Powered Giraffes, and they do like a Rihanna cover. Will you pull that up? I just want to start showing YouTube videos to Bill. This is a whole like world that I didn't even know about, and then I started. Everyone I worked with knew about steampunks, and I started asking. I actually ordered a pair of steampunk goggles while we were making the show just for fun, because I just wanted to like wear them and see what it felt like.
Was these like the goggles Buffalo Bill had in Silence of the Lambs, James Gumb? Are they night vision or they're different?
They're not. No, they're not night vision, but maybe the people that wear them pretend they are or something.
Right.
Because it's futuristic. I just want to get the definition of steampunk, because I feel like I'm. Oh, you do?
That's the steampunk music?
Show Bill, the guy. So it's a guy kind of like acting like a robot.
Oh my God. So last time you predicted magic was going to have a renaissance. Now you're predicting the steampunk revolution. No, okay.
I'm not predicting it. I think it's been going on. Okay, steampunk is a genre of speculative fiction or science fiction that emphasizes
Victorian, right?
Well, what are all these words? So it's basically like old technology fetish type thing.
Oh.
It's also used to refer to a trend in fashion and music. So maybe I'm like, yeah.
So at what point does this become a search on
it's from the
Pornhub?
Victorian era, but they can do like futuristic things.
What time? When does this become a porn search?
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is now.
Can you
right?
Google?
No, Google that.
I'm sure, right? I've never
Steampunk.
Googled that. I haven't.
Good.
But,
I'm glad.
Yeah, it's on Pornhub.
Great.
What is it? What's the title?
Steampunk porn videos. It has its own.
And you want to pull one
No,
up? Or
no.
are you not allowed, or is this?
I don't want Tate to get a virus.
We're not at Grandland anymore.
That's true.
What do you care? They can't fire you.
So magic. Do we feel like magic had a renaissance or no? It had the David Blaine special.
Right, I did actually, because
You
I do
predicted
remember.
a renaissance.
I was like predicting. Like, did you pull one up?
It didn't look good.
Oh, okay.
It didn't look like it was.
At least pull up the GIF, the screen grab. This is kind of dirty, right? We don't want to go into this zone.
I mean, I don't. If I'm listening, I don't know. They can't. The
Google
listeners
images.
can't see.
Google images.
Oh no. Oh my God.
It's all there.
Ah.
It's all there.
I can't see.
I can't
but
unsee it.
I'll look it up after. I guess so. Yeah, I don't know if there has been like a full magic renaissance.
We
but
need
I
more
do-
musicians.
I
Is
do
what we need.
More magicians.
We need more David Blaines.
There are people
shouldn't be
doing
all on his
stuff-
shoulders.
There are people doing stuff that are a little more unique. Actually, I think the show I talked about before, this guy Derek Delgadio, who has a show in New York, is really cool. He does, and I used to do magic, so I know a lot of things. So it's very rare that I'll see a magic show where I don't know anything that's going on. But this guy Derek, who has a show in New York, I went to see it, and I don't know what is going on. And it's not even about like the magic too. It's a lot of, I think he doesn't like being known as a magician because magic has such a bad reputation. You know what I mean? It's so corny. So he's trying to do his own thing that's like undefinable or something. But there's still a lot of like amazing stuff in the show that I don't know how it's done. But I think there's things like popping up, but it's tough because you're kind of like, magic is kind of, it feels a little like steampunk in a way because it's like so cheesy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now there's
But
so
there's
many.
no cool steam. Well, I don't want to make a judgment. I don't know much about steampunk, so it's hard for me to talk about the world. I know it's a big thing in porn, we've discovered. And we know there's also like, there's hoverboard porn too. I don't know if you know about that.
What?
So it's like two people will be on, this is something.
Look at me.
Well, I'm wondering if you would give me like a nod, like, oh yeah, I know. I think we kind of went from steampunk to this when we were researching this stuff, but it's like two people will be on a those hoverboards?
Yeah.
They'll like go opposite directions and then go together. So it goes in like that, like back and forth. It's not sexually enjoyable, but
It doesn't sound it.
yeah. I don't, I don't like really, pornography is not, it's definitely disgusting and we shouldn't look at that.
Has pornography, I can't remember, has that been a theme of an episode yet or no? For you? Not totally, right?
Well, there was like, I did a lie detector test in one of the seasons where the guy asked if I like look at pornography, but he was using a Toshiba laptop, and old software, so it wasn't accurate.
Right.
Yeah, the results.
What's going on this season? What are some of the? Is there anything you can give away? Or no?
This season, the one thing, like we have this special 1 hour special before, but then, so we made this. We kind of set out to make this. Some things happen behind the scenes sometimes in the show that we're like, oh, this might make an interesting episode. Like last season, we had the Summit Ice thing, which was a jacket company I started because my old jacket that I wore supported the Holocaust,
right?
Or like was pro-Nazi, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know. And then I created a jacket company that was like to promote Holocaust awareness, and we give all the money to charity. And that was something that really happened, like, because I was wearing the jacket in the show. And so these things happen that were sometimes like, oh, this could maybe be a thing, and it intersects with the real world in an interesting way. And so this year, there was something that happened kind of like behind the scenes that we're like, oh, maybe this could be an episode or a segment. And then it turned into like a 2-hour story.
Yeah.
And so that's like our finale this year is 2 hours
What?
long. Yeah. Which is very, because we've even had a hard time like making stories that will last one episode.
Yeah.
Because we'll sometimes do multiple. And so this one just took us into like a crazy territory that was very different than anything we've done on the show before. And I'm very curious to see what people think about it, because it's like tonally very different than what we've done.
So you went to Comedy Central and you said, I'm going to need 2 hours for the season finale?
No, we didn't want to do that. We just started shooting. And then like kind of near the end of shooting it, I called Kent Alterman, who's the president of Comedy Central. And I was like, hey, so like, I know you, like, I have a contract to deliver like half-hour episodes. And I'm like, this one's like going to be a lot longer. And he's like, well, how long? And I'm like, I think it might be like 2 hours long. And he's like, he was really skeptical. And he was like, okay, well, why don't you edit it together and then like show it to me? So we did, and we screened it for him, and he was like, okay, I see what you mean. And he's like, they made a 2-hour block for us to show it. They're the best to work with, like Kent and Rachel Olsen's our executive, but they're really great, like in terms of letting us do what we want with this show.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had such a great creative experience. Really good.
It's not typical.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just really cool. And I don't know if you know, but Kent, do you know Kent? Or
I know Kent very well, and he's
Okay.
a gigantic San Antonio Spurs fan. So if you ever need to really butter him up in some way.
Why San Antonio Spurs? Is he from there?
I can't remember how it ended up happening, but like he's huge San Antonio Spurs fan.
Huh.
Good way to butter him up. Bring it up, be like, hey man, how about the Spurs? Looking good.
But then
Kawhi's looking great.
And then what's my
it.
follow-up
No, you have like
question?
5 statements. You just fake your way along.
Okay, so the first one will be like, oh, how about those Spurs?
Spurs looking good again.
then
Then he'll
what's my
say, yeah,
second
you've been
thing?
watching. You'll say, yeah, I think Kawhi has a chance to maybe win the MVP this year.
Yeah, I think Kawhi is going to win the MVP.
Then he'll be like, oh yeah, he's been great. And then he'll throw something at you like, what do you think of the new guy?
Oh, love him.
And
like,
you just be like, he's been good. Been
good.
surprised. Pleasant
I've
surprise.
never seen someone dribble like that. It's like, and like,
And then here's
I
your
love that he's
closer.
also like, he scores like a lot of points, but he also passes too, which
Right,
is like
it's
so
very unselfish.
generous. Yeah.
Right.
And
Then
you don't
you're-
see a lot of players like that.
Then your last one, your closer is,
Yeah.
my only concern is I just don't know how much longer Popovich wants to do this.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
the
my only
coach because he's
concern-
older.
And I'm just going to like, we don't have to talk about the Spurs all night, but I'll say as a final statement, like, I just don't know how long Popovich is going to want to do this because of his health and everything. So
That brings it down. That brings the energy down.
right,
Kurt
right,
can't get sad.
right,
And then you move on.
Right,
Then
yeah.
he goes, well, so how's the show going? That's good. Then
right,
it seems
right,
like you
right.
care.
Popovich.
It's the right move.
So Popovich and Kawhi.
Popovich and Kawhi.
I
Popovich
remember
is the
Kawhi
coach.
because Kawhi is like an island.
Kawhi.
Right, Hawaii.
Yeah, he's one of the best 5
And
guys.
it's spelled the same?
Kawhi, yeah.
Kawhi. And
Not spelled the same.
Not spelled
Oh.
the same, but pronounced the same.
Kawhi, okay.
Kawhi.
And what does he like look like?
He's 6'7".
Okay.
Does he still have the cornrows?
cornrows.
He's the last guy in the league with cornrows.
Okay.
And he's like a great 2-way offense-defense guy.
Okay. And Popovich is
He's the old grumpy coach who,
Mm-hmm.
when they interview him during the games, he yells at the sideline reporters or gives them one-word answers. He's like America's favorite curmudgeon sports coach.
right. So Popovich, I'll come up with like a rhyme to remember, like Popovich.
Popovich.
He's
But you call him Pop.
he's an old witch. Oh, this is
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard. Okay.
There you go.
And Leonard is a
You've never done a
classic
sports theme
name.
episode though, have you? Like with professional sports? No.
Well,
Nothing.
actually, this season,
Yeah.
we do something where we have and this is Popovich.
Yeah.
And his mouth is just open in this photo. It's not always like that, right?
No, it's usually like that. It's
okay.
wide open. He's yelling at people.
Cool.
Yeah. So this
Seems like sports are really fun.
it really, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually do something this year where there's like a chili shop that was trying to get their chili sold in like as a vendor in a hockey arena for the hockey team. It's like below, what's the one below NHL? AHL?
AHL.
Yeah. And they wouldn't allow, even though it was like known as like a good chili in town, they wouldn't allow it in. So we designed like a chili suit that goes under your clothing that holds 40 pounds of chili with a peristaltic pumping system so we could secretly serve it. And we come up with this elaborate way to sneak it into the stadium so he can sell it, kind of like bootleg. So that's kind of sports.
Kind of, yeah.
Because it's, at a hockey game, you want chili.
When did you finish all these?
Finish shooting?
All these episodes, yeah. How long they've been?
We just
kind of
sound mixed the finale like last week. So we're still kind of, yeah.
And then when do you start planning the next season?
Well, at this point...
Are we breaking news right now?
At this point, I'm always like... Well, it's kind of like what you said. Like, you're like, how can you do more of these? And that's how I feel every year. I'm like, well, how can we possibly do more? I'm always like exhausted after each season. But I always want to feel like there's a good reason to do it. Like, rather than just like trying to deliver and like make up things, like it's starting at a place of like, oh, there's like a good thing that we want to explore that works within the format of the show.
Well, you must get offers to do movies and stuff, right?
Probably less than you'd think.
Really? Nobody wants you to like write a script or
no people
write a crazy version of your version of a rom-com or all that kind of weird stuff.
I love romance, so I'm like always promoting that and like eager to. I feel like I could be like. Do you feel like I could be in like a rom-com or
like a modern Sleepless in Seattle type situation?
Yeah, I have like that was Billy Crystal, right?
That was Tom Hanks.
Oh, what was the Billy Crystal?
Well, couldn't you be that was When Harry Met Sally?
Yeah. So I'm like,
couldn't you be a magician who can't find love, and then when you do the press tour, you're just insisting that this is not based on David Blaine at all?
Is that what?
No,
does he have a problem with finding love?
No, he's a legendary ladies' man.
Right.
This would be maybe that. This magician is not a ladies' man.
Oh, so
maybe he's
so it isn't based on David.
That's
Blaine.
why you'd be insisting it wasn't him.
I think there could be like just like kind of romance between me and.
So what other movie idea is there? Detective? I'm trying to think of all the generic movie tropes.
Well, detective could be good.
Like you have a partner like a robot dog.
One thing I do feel like that I've kind of wanted to do is like, do you know the show Columbo?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I
love those 70s detective shows.
Yes.
Jim Rockford was my guy though. I like Rockford Files more than Columbo.
Really?
Yeah, I did. And Vegas was my favorite of the 70s ones.
I think Columbo. Yeah, I guess I never got into the Rockford Files as much.
You were in one camp or the other. I was always Jim Rockford.
Isn't Columbo kind of unanimously seen as the better one?
I think so. I think it was not unanimously, but I think more people probably like it. I think it's
unanimous. I'll look it up after.
Do you remember Vegas though? Dan Tana, Robert Urich?
No.
He's in Vegas.
I'm a millennial, so I might be.
They showed the replays a lot.
Oh.
You're not a millennial.
Yes, I am.
Are you officially a millennial?
I was born in 83. The cutoff is 83.
Is that true, Tate?
Yeah, give it to him.
What? Wait, what are you?
I don't identify.
What?
No, Tate's a millennial.
What year were you born?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So we're the same. I'm proud to be a millennial. Cutoff's 83, just in the cutoff.
You're definitely not a millennial.
Excuse me?
You're not a millennial.
Why am I not a millennial? Look it up.
How are you a millennial?
Look it up.
Who said the cutoff was 83?
Every article written about millennials. Look it up. I am 100% a millennial.
I always thought you
That's
had
why
to
on
be
some things we don't relate.
you had to be out of high school in the 21st century to be a millennial, right? Or to not be a millennial. Is he right?
We just see the world a little differently than you.
Millennials are those born between 1983 and 2000.
That's a ridiculous definition. I don't agree with
83.
that. You're the first millennial.
I'm one of the first. Yes.
Maybe that's your rom-com. You're the first millennial.
right.
The
Or,
first
or the
millennial.
last millennial. It could be called.
The last millennial.
Yeah.
Well, now it's Gen Z is the new generation.
Gen Z.
That's
And
what
what's
they're
are
calling
they
it. I don't know
known
if it's
for?
going to take. Gen Z is basically they're on Instagram and Snapchat and they're trapped to their phones and they have no attention span. But then they also have a great attention span because they can do 7 things at once.
And millennials is more like we like rock and roll music and right, like we love
Play outside.
right.
Right.
Oh, that's
You're sensitive.
we grew up playing outside.
Yeah, you're sensitive. You've had the internet for most of your life.
We have more because there's also that what is it called, the indigo kids or something? Is that one, like the kids that are supposed to have like a sixth sense? Isn't that a thing?
Indigo kids?
No, it's not indigo. It's something like that.
Indigo children.
Will you Google that? Indigo
Indigo children.
Indigo children. And what does it say? It's like they have a special connection with Mother Earth.
Yeah, new age concept. Possess special, unusual, sometimes supernatural traits or abilities.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that sounds like Stephen King area.
And that's like that's like 15 years younger than us.
I have this. They're not real. I have 17 signs that you're an indigo child.
That's what you have up there?
Yeah.
I'm not an indigo, but I'm tight. So what generation are you?
I'm
greatest?
firmly Gen X.
Gen X.
That was like I was right out of college when I might have even been graduating college when that guy released it. And Gen X was like pre-internet, kind of post-baby. The kids of baby boomers, basically the early baby boomers, and we all
you
came
kind of
out
like
of college.
the system.
Yeah, no, it was more like we came out of college and it was harder to find a job because it was pre-internet. But we had like this sad music and the sad kind of grunge music. But then there was also the birth of rap and hip hop, and pop culture was super important back then. Sports.
Yeah, for millennials, one of our defining traits is that we don't understand the concept of selling out.
right.
Do you know that? There's this I'm kind of obsessed with this Frontline documentary that they did called Generation Like, and it's about millennials and their value system. I mean, it's kind of featuring kids like in high school now,
Yeah.
but I still see them as a peer because we're the same generation. But the most fascinating part of it is they ask all the kids, like, what does it mean to sell out?
Yeah.
And they're like, is that like you have a bunch of stuff and you sell it all? And the actual concept of selling out doesn't make any sense to millennials because their goal is to be sponsored.
Right,
That's like
'cause
what they want.
they're the Kardashian
they kind
generation.
of know it has a bad connotation, but it like glitches their brain in a way, or our brain.
Well, because
I need to drop
your
this.
brain.
It's hard. I can't talk about this without.
Well, your
Yeah.
generation, I think it's
don't.
more about, YouTube views, Instagram follower numbers. That's what you guys care about.
And yeah, they have all these like kids sitting around talking about like why a photo got more likes and what they need to do and like to get more likes. It's actually kind of horrifying, the Frontline thing. They play it very straight, but it kind of like it's showing these like famous YouTube, Instagram people, but then also showing like young kids who are doing it.
Yeah.
And then the kid's mom.
That's
it's like
an industry.
It's like a 7-year-old girl, and the kid's mom is like, well, she gets more likes when she wears a bikini or something. So,
Oh, no.
yeah. Anyways,
My kids
highly recommend.
love Logan Paul.
Right.
Logan Paul is a big, big, big thing with basically 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. I don't know if you've seen his work.
Okay, so I'm like recently learned about
Logan Paul?
the Paul brothers.
Yes, Logan and
And
Jake.
I read
Jake's the
that
more
business-
controversial one.
I read that Business Insider profile on Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is an incredible article.
I've actually had a conversation with a parent friend of mine about whether Logan Paul is going to be remembered like the Beastie Boy, like my generation remembered the Beastie Boys.
How do they? How do they relate to them? Or like, what is the?
Well, like my kids think Logan Paul, like he's doing really.
How old are your kids?
I have a 9.5-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter.
Right.
My 9.5-year-old son thinks Logan Paul is doing like great and important work. Like when he does these songs that he creates, he knows all the words the same way if you were 12, you knew the Beastie Boys in 1988.
Mm-hmm. Well, Logan Paul did that, or his brother Jake.
Jake's the one who's controversial.
Because he did that. There was that KTLA news story where he was like Dennis the Menace, right?
He was in his neighborhood. Yeah, he was like, antagonizing the neighborhood.
Right.
Then he had a feud with Rice Gum, who's another YouTube person.
Oh my God.
And everybody picked sides, but a lot of people feel like Rice Gum won because Jake Paul backed off.
Right, and was Rice Gum.
Rice Gum's another YouTube
name?
Guy. Yeah, well, that's his YouTube identity. He does videos.
Oh.
So it's basically like the East Coast, West Coast rap wars. But
is that how kids kind of view it? But with
smaller internet people and with way less stakes. Nobody gets shot and killed.
Well, the best part about the Jake Paul thing, because he released that, he had that video, the KTLA news thing, and then he released kind of an apology rap, right, or where he was kind of saying like, you don't really know me.
Apology raps usually don't work.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's the fail rate of apology raps are 100%.
Because he's kind of saying like, you saw that clip of me terrorizing the neighborhood, but like, you guys didn't report on all the good stuff I do.
Yeah,
I think he says like, where was y'all at when I was like helping feed kids on Thanksgiving? Poor kids.
Yeah. Jake Paul. There's another side apparently.
And yeah, I think those two videos, like the KTLA and then that rap, are the current best 1-2 punch on the internet right now, in my opinion.
I'm obsessed with this Instagram feed called Drunk People Doing Things. Oh. And it's just drunk people doing things. And it's like drunk people deciding it would be a good idea to try to jump across a pool and not making it, and funnels gone wrong. And
oh really? I gotta check that out.
I'm obsessed with it. And they try to spin it. Had a lot of success. It's got almost 2 million followers. So then they decided like high people doing things and animals doing things, but drunk people doing things is the franchise. Like they can spread it out all they want.
Someone showed me this one a while ago. I don't know if it's still around, but it was called Hot Guys Reading.
Hot Guys Reading?
Have you? No. It's all like taken on like New York subways.
Yeah.
Or something. And it's just attractive men reading books, like, but not their phones, like reading physical novels. Is that still there? Something like that?
It exists.
But then they write kind of like a objectifying description of the guy kind of playing out their fantasy.
Last summer I became obsessed with this. There's this guy named 8 Booth.
I mean, I'm not attracted to the guy, so I think it's kind of funny.
We're
and
not
interesting.
Judging. There's this guy named 8 Booth who was doing these high risk jumps. And he was like jumping from the 8th floor of hotels. He was doing jumps that were illegal. He's wearing a mask. And he's like, all right, he's jumping from the 8th floor balcony of a hotel into the pool and then running out and getting out of there before he gets arrested. And he kept escalating the stakes, and he probably did like 15, 16 jumps. And I became obsessed with the guy. And I watched all the jumps. My kid and I, we were watching him. The guy does this hotel jump. He mistimes or misjudges it, and nails his feet on the side of the pool and like shatters both of his feet. Crawls out, gets arrested. There's been these stories about him, and it's like, that's it. His career's over. So there's a dark side to this stuff too.
Well, I've thought about it. Like YouTube started in 2005.
Right.
And at that time I was 22. And I'm so thankful that YouTube was not around when I was 13, because I know I would have done some very dumb stuff for the sake of like, because I was like more reckless, I think, when I was younger.
Oh, yeah. And
so it's weird now because like kids are doing those crazy things to try to get views, and it's kind of there forever. Yeah.
Even if you delete it, it probably still lives somewhere.
Do you have to teach your kids? Like, do you have to say to your kids, like, what do you say about that? Like posting stuff or?
So my kids, their accounts are private, and my daughter really wants her account to be public so she can get more followers, and I've had to explain to her why this is a bad idea. But it was interesting. My son, we put this one video of him he did like this impersonation of a wrestler, and we put it out there and just kind of forgot about it. And a year later, he's like, "Is that video still up?" And we looked, and it was like half likes and half dislikes, and people were like, "This kid sucks" and all this. And he read the comments, and he was like devastated.
Oh, really?
And I was like, "This is funny. This is what the internet does." But he was like, he really thought it was, and that's when I was thinking, like, "Wow, this is why it's a bad idea for kids to put stuff up on the internet." Like, you just take shit from these random people, and if you're 9 years old, it's hard to deal with.
Yeah, and you also like then start developing yourself based on like what the internet likes.
Right, the likes and the dislikes, right.
And that's kind of scary idea.
Well, that's one of the problems with writing right now, is that people are afraid to write anything that they might get slaughtered on the internet about. So they kind of drift toward these safe places.
Right.
And so you got this, basically everybody trying to write the best versions of the same topics.
Yeah.
And there's no kind of going against the grain, so it's a little more boring. You just have to get more inventive. But it's so easy now on Twitter, if somebody writes or does something, and people just like, look, they grab like the one sentence or the one paragraph, and then all of a sudden you're getting slaughtered for 2 days.
Yeah.
You haven't had to have that. You haven't dealt with that with your show, though.
With
I don't
what?
think. You haven't had an episode that was like the controversial,
where
I can't believe he did this episode. Yeah, and you had the outrage culture came after you.
No, but I'm always ready for that to happen.
It's kind of your dream. You would love it.
No, it's not. I don't want to deal with that. Oh my gosh. I don't know. We always we put a lot of thought though into like what we're doing and kind of our approach. It's not super well, at least, when we shoot, we try a lot of things, but then in the edit, we think about like how we approach certain subjects and make sure we're not we do some stuff too about like, I don't want to, because I think in general, like I am kind of like worried about, I don't want to offend, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not like someone who's like, here's my opinion, like eat it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that what people say?
Eat it.
Because I feel like in general, I'm fairly I'm kind of uncertain about things, and I'm like, oh, like some will say their perspective, and I'll be like, oh, that's right. And then someone else will say theirs, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a good point. You know what I mean? So I'm like very open to things, and I think because of that, I do feel like there's always a pressure to like have a strong opinion about something. Yeah. And I don't have that about a lot of things. And I think that's like a weird, because I think that's the internet too, is like people having really strong opinions about like, this is what you got to think, or this is how to feel. And sometimes I don't, but I feel like a pressure to pretend I do,
Maybe that could be
like
part of your gimmick.
Pressure. Yeah.
Maybe your gimmick could be just not that the opinions aren't that strong.
What do you mean?
I don't know. They're just opinions.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
cheeseburgers have to be cooked.
I feel like the natural human state is like total uncertainty and like not being sure about like anything really. And then you're kind of like, you develop opinions. There are obviously certain things you feel like strong, like, oh, murder is bad.
Right.
Like, you know
Cancer
what I mean?
stinks.
Like I have an opinion.
Yeah.
But then there's, I think like, it's like every little thing that comes out, people, like the articles you were saying, people have to have like a strong view that goes into the safe zone, but they're like, this is how things should be.
I read the Rolling Stone profile of you, and there was one part where you were like, that's not going to be the angle, is it? Like you got mad at the writer.
I wasn't mad. Honestly, I think a lot of those situations were like a little like misread in terms of like what my experience was.
Yeah.
The writer was he was a really nice guy, but he was like very, very nervous.
Yeah.
The whole time. And he was like kind of shaking when he was asking me some questions. So I kept kind of being like, are you okay? Like, why do you want to, like he was asking about my divorce, and he was asking about like certain things with like the show, but he looked very uncomfortable. So I was like wondering why he was going down this road if he seemed very uncomfortable with it. And he kind of said at one point, he was like, I was like, why did you, because he was like, oh, tell me about your divorce or whatever. And I was like, Oh, well, I don't like talking about like personal stuff, like with like press or whatever. And
Yeah.
I was like, you look so uncomfortable asking though. Why? And he was like, well, because I knew you. Why'd you ask? And he was like, well, I knew you wouldn't want to answer. And I was like, well, that's not the best reason to ask a question.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I do that a lot in the show, so I understand. You're trying to get something interesting.
I've
Yeah.
obviously been on both sides of this. Like I've written stuff like that. I've written features about people, and I've also been written about.
Yeah.
And it does seem like when people do those pieces, they feel like if they don't bring up the one or two uncomfortable things, either they ask you or they write about it, then it would look like they're in the bag for you.
That's, right. And I get that. Yeah. And I'm like conflicted too. Cause I want something to be interesting. Like I want people to read it and be like, oh, we're learning about something.
I mean, think of all the stuff we've learned in the last 45 minutes.
Yeah. I'm
We
sure.
went on
like,
Pornhub. All kinds of great things happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want it to be like people to know how much I'm into hot guys reading. Definitely want that to be out there. Yeah.
So the reality is it's not fun to be written about.
Well,
and
it's
you're never
also
going to be
like-
happy with it. There's always going to be one sentence. You're like, oh, why is that in there?
Well, I want people to watch the show.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but then you have to feel like, oh, you have to give some of yourself and stuff. And that's cool. But it's like, I don't think I'm very interesting. Like I put a lot of effort into like making the show a good product so people will enjoy. But I don't feel as myself I'm like that interesting of a person to talk to. So I'm like probably a little insecure about just doing stuff where I'm like, yeah, this is me and this is my life.
Quick break to talk about our old friend, MeUndies. We have been together now for almost 2 years. We're almost at the 2-year anniversary of the BS podcast. MeUndies was a sponsor on the first podcast we did. Summer, perfect time to upgrade your underwear drawer. And now it's the end of summer. Now we're heading to fall. Still a great time. MeUndies, the ultimate feel-good undies. Designed in LA, every pair of MeUndies made with micromodal, a fabric 3 times softer than cotton. Soft, stretchy undies that come in an ever-changing array of colors and patterns. No matter what your style, they've got something for you. They just mailed me a couple more underwear. I love the saggy boxers, but they had Fruit Loops on them. It was a Fruit Loop underwear, and my kids were super excited. Don't ask why my kids saw me in my underwear. When you're a parent, it happens. But Fruit Loop underwear, Tate, don't judge me. Wait, Tate just judged me. MeUndies comes in all kinds of colors and patterns. New limited edition patterns each month that always sell out. I wonder if the Fruit Loops sold out. For the fellas, diamond seam pouch cradles your jewels. Gives your stuff the support it needs without feeling too tight. That's why I like the MeUndies. Right now, you'll save 20% off your first pair and receive free shipping only at MeUndies.com/BS. And if you don't love the first pair, they are free. 20% off, free shipping, 100% satisfaction guarantee on the best, softest underwear you will own. MeUndies.com/BS. It is a limited time offer. What are you waiting for? Back to Nathan Fielder. I had no idea you knew Seth Rogen for that long. That was my biggest revelation from that interview. Somehow we did 2 podcasts. I don't think that came up. But when I say long, I mean like you knew each other when you were
babies.
kids. Like
Yeah,
you were
kids.
early millennials together.
Yeah, well, he's actually a year older, so I think he's 82, so he's a
he
different
doesn't get the
generation
cutoff.
than me.
Yeah, that's weird. It's amazing you guys got along.
Yeah, he's Generation X, and I'm Millennial. So, you know, we
You have to
there's
work that
always
out.
like a bit of a disconnect
Yeah.
because like we had different interests.
So was he somebody that you knew early on was going to go do something?
Yeah, he was always so funny. Well, we did improv together in high school. There was like an improv team, and
Yeah.
he was doing stand up in high school, age 13. He started doing it and
Wow.
kind of like sneaking on stage in these places that they wouldn't even allow anyone over 19. Drinking age is 19
Yeah.
in Canada. 19 to like get into. And he was always just the most naturally funny. And then we did the improv team, and like he left the school to go do, I think it was Undeclared or Freaks and Geeks, one of the two. Yeah, Freaks and Geeks. And it made sense. I mean, he was clearly
good to do that for a living.
Yes. Like I actually think at that time, like I was a little, because I was trying to do comedy, but I wasn't quite like as developed as he was. Like the type of jokes he made back then, I feel like are very similar to like the stuff he does now.
Right.
Yeah.
Was he the first person who
I mean,
introduced
it's
you to
better,
weed?
obviously.
Did he introduce you to weed? I mean, weed had to be a factor then back then.
He was way more into weed than I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never got into it. The reason I think is because like every time I smoke, I would fall asleep right away. So it doesn't, in social environments, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah. And I'm already kind of like sleepy in social environments. Like I'm not the most talkative and stuff. So it's kind of like the opposite effect.
Well, now they have
But
these.
I also haven't tried drugs that do like the other thing. Like
give you pep and
yeah, what's the
like
one?
cocaine?
Is that what it does?
Yeah.
What was it like when you did
I've
it?
never tried cocaine.
Oh, you'd have.
I've actually somehow
do
never
you
even been
know
in the
that?
room with cocaine.
You've been in a room?
I've never been in the room.
You've never like
I've never
had
even seen it.
someone
I've never
offer
seen
it?
somebody cut lines up.
Like a bathroom stall.
Yeah,
or
I've had a very
anything?
sheltered life.
What drugs have you done?
Pot.
Pot? That's
Yeah.
it? Nothing more?
Pot.
What about shrooms?
No.
Really?
No. I had a weird.
I did that in high school.
I had a weird thing
Twice.
though when I was 16.
Second time though
shrooms
was bad.
was bad.
Yeah,
And that was
so I
it.
stopped doing it. Yeah.
When I
well,
was-
not like I would have kept doing it, but
When I was 16, the Celtics drafted this guy Len Bias, who was like the number 2 pick in the draft that year. And he
Okay.
was this guy who was going to be like our best player. And he overdosed on cocaine 2 days later. And that like legitimately scared me from drugs after that.
Really?
It had like a profound effect on me. Yeah.
how old were you?
I was 16.
Wow.
I was even afraid to try pot for a while.
That's
Then
why
I realized eventually like pot's fine.
Yeah, that's why I'm into Kawhi, because he's like a clean player. Like he
Right.
doesn't do drugs at all.
Yeah, we don't
And
know what
so-
Popovich has been up to.
Yeah. So that's why I feel like he's really.
The best part of this conversation is Louis K just freaking out that we're just openly talking about drugs. You just see his brain going. You know, one thing about pot now, though, if you're in
But
California,
it's legal here,
Yeah,
right?
it's-
It's kind
you
of
have
like
to get a card.
It's not a big.
they have stores in California for pot where you can buy pot that will give you the mood you want to get. So if there's like gregarious pot, you could buy pot, you could smoke it, you'd be gregarious. You wouldn't be sleepy, you'd go the other way.
Yeah, I did at one point. I don't like maybe once a year I'll smoke a little bit or something, but like I don't really do it. But there was one time I think a couple years ago where I was like really anxious.
Yeah.
And one day I just went out to one of the fake weird doctors, who do the cards, and I like got the license, and then
It's
I
so
went
easy to get the
to the
cards.
store and I bought it, and I think they were all making fun of me because I didn't know anything, like the 2 different strains or whatever they
Yeah.
were telling me about, and I was they're like, how do you want to feel? And I was like, I don't know, just like a little relaxed. It was really weird, but the doctor was like, when I went to the doctor to do it, he's like, so what do you have? And I'm like, I'm just feeling a little anxious, but I don't like. And he slid this like list towards me with like the conditions that are acceptable to get the license.
Yeah.
And then he like pointed to the list and he's like, so what are you feeling? And I was like, just a little anxiety. And then he like pointed to the list harder again. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'm like of a bit of pain too. Like, it's not a real thing, right? They just
Nah.
kind of like have to do it.
The new
to-
racket with this is emotional support dogs, which
What do
you've
you-
seen on the airplane.
What do you mean?
You're allowed to take dogs on the airplane now if you have if you're like uptight or you need like the emotional support of a dog.
Yeah.
Your doctor can say this my patient needs to have a dog to make him feel calm and safe on an airplane. And now people are abusing this left and right, and it's just an excuse to take your dog to wherever you're going, and not have to pay for like a dog shelter or doggy care or whatever.
Right. Well,
So you
there's
go
a
on
whole
planes
like,
now, there's dogs everywhere, and it's like that's not an emotional support dog. That's just your dog.
it's like the DSM is like, doesn't it grow every year?
Yes.
mental conditions thing, and it's like everyone now has something, and
it's easy to
everyone
get
needs-
somebody to write you a note these days.
Yeah.
I had one last thing to mention before we go.
Okay.
I wanted to
Are
pitch
you
one.
bored? Is that why you're ending
No,
it?
we're up.
Cool.
It's
'Cause
almost
I'm-
12 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I don't know how it goes.
The
Felt like we went longer at Grantland. Since I don't know a lot about sports,
Right.
Or I don't like. I used to follow the Canucks and the BC Lions a lot. Do you know the BC Lions?
Yeah.
But yeah, so after I did this podcast, I talked to people about you, and they would say like, "Oh, he's really good because he kind of gives an opinion that other people don't, and he's really honest with his like take, and people find it really refreshing."
Well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah,
I hope that's still the case.
I think it's nice.
Lewis gave me a thumbs up.
I mean, I didn't mean it in terms of like, I like talk to you for an hour, then I'm like, why do people like this guy? No, it was, yeah, it seems like you have a really loyal following. People really love you.
It's nice to hear. Well, I would say the same about you. Nathan,
thank
for you.
you.
What time? When is it? When is the launch?
So this Thursday, we have the hour-long special called Nathan for You
But what time?
Celebration, 10 p.m.
And then the new
But
season
check your
starts
DVR
after
because
that.
it's weird sometimes. So
Yeah.
check your thing. And then a week later, the new season starts 10 p.m. September 28th.
Great. Good luck. This was fun.
Thanks,
Third book
Phil.
trilogy is in the books.
Yes.
It's our third one trilogy.
Yeah, no,
okay.
I know what that word means.
Taking one more quick break to talk about House of Carbs. That's Joe House's podcast. He's been on this podcast a bunch of times. House of Carbs is heating up to the point that famous chefs are emailing him asking to come on House of Carbs. That's the level of food conversation we have on this. It's a podcast for the hungry, by the hungry. Check it out, House of Carbs. And while you're subscribing to Ringer Podcast, don't forget about Black on the Air with Larry Wilmore, which has just had a bevy of famous guests and some of the best conversations you're going to get on politics, on celebrity, on race, on news, on sports, you name it. Larry Wilmore, it's fantastic. It's called Black in the Air. Check it out. One more person to plug here, and it's not a person. It's a website. From a gambling standpoint, we are going to remember the 2010s as the decade when live betting took off. Where you're betting is just as important as who you're betting on. Here's an idea. Go to mybookie.ag. They've been in the business for years. Their reputation rock solid. They do 100% cash bonuses. Off the bat, you're making money for doing nothing. They have the fastest payouts, just 2 business days. In-game live betting, the most rewarding player perks in the business, and an all-new mobile site that makes wagering on the go a breeze. In-game live betting, a new frontier. Check it out. Lay down some cash. Try to win big today. Join now, and MyBookie will match your deposit with a 100% bonus. All you have to do is visit mybookie.ag. Use the promo code Bill Simmons to activate the offer. You play, you win, you get paid. Coming up right now, The Ringer's Mike Lombardi. Our old friend Mike Lombardi is here.
It's nice to be
The
back.
Ringer's own. He's got the GM Street podcast twice a week on the Ringer NFL show, which has been excellent and very useful this year. I wanted to talk about how sloppy it's been in September.
Yeah.
This seems like a trend that Kevin Clark wrote about it today, about the kind of the unwatchability of the NFL right now. It seems like a September trend that has happened, I would say 3 to 4 straight years. I don't feel like this was the case like in 2012. His theory was that combination of not as much practice time plus how offenses have changed and it's just check down, make the safest pass, game manage, keep it in the game, and only a few teams are willing to experiment. Is there anything else missing from the puzzle?
I think 2 factors. I think the practice time is definitely, I think offensive line play, because they can't go inside the facility in February and March.
Yeah.
Offensive line play is like a golfer. You have to practice your swing every single day or else you lose it. So we've lost offensive lineman player development.
So you think it's almost like the short game in golf?
Exactly. You got to work at it constantly. And if you don't have enough time. And so those young guys need to go in there in February or March. So that factor. I think the coaching level has really dropped.
Yeah.
I think we have guys that just call offenses and defenses, but they're not truly head coaches. So the preparation of preparing your team is way different than getting your team ready for the season. I think that factor, and I think there's too many times where in September the players aren't really ready to play. So preseason, even though there's been so many days, teams really haven't utilized preseason effectively enough because they're too worried about getting their team to the first game as opposed to getting their team prepared for the first game. And I think you see it, and I think the conditioning level's bad, pad level's bad. I think that's why the product's bad. They've got to change the CBA or else it's going to keep getting worse.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think the solution is? Because September has now turned into kind of a fancy preseason.
Belichick's called September preseason for the last 4 years. He calls it a continuation of preseason. I think they have to change the CBA. And I agree the CBA, the coaches started having mini camps and OTA days. It's too hard. But offensive and defensive linemen need to go in there in February and March and April and really just work. I think they need to change that or else they won't develop any offensive linemen because the college game is so bad in terms of developing offensive linemen. They're all in a 2-point stance. Nobody run blocks. So you have to almost detrain to then retrain players for pro football. Very hard to do in a short span of time.
You were talking about this on my podcast 6 years ago.
Yeah, no, I know. It's been a problem.
You were saying college was eventually going to ruin the pros.
And it has. And I think what you have to do in pro football is take, which Seattle has tried to do to a degree, but they don't have enough time to do it, is take defensive linemen and turn them over to offensive linemen. But you can't do it. The Giants tried to do it with a kid this year in camp, and there's not enough time to do it. You need a full off season to do it. You need all that time. It can't happen. But you're seeing it. Look, the Saints are 1-11 since 2014 in September. I mean, and Sean Payton's a good coach. Like, that's not just a bad time.
That could be an are we sure Sean Payton's a good coach at
They're
this
exactly
point.
right. I mean, because his team's not prepared.
People can lose it. Jeff Fisher was a good coach in the early 2000s, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. But he was in Tennessee with McNair.
But clearly he hasn't figured out a way to embrace the new procedures of the offseason, of how you have to handle it, because his team's not ready to play. He's won one game. It was a home game against Minnesota in 2014. I mean, it's hard to come back. What was the stats last night? They said it was a 10% chance of making the playoffs when you start 0-2.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always behind the hole. He's got to go to Carolina this week and win it. That's a challenge.
You did the Blue Chippers podcast with Tate. You did offense, then you did defense, then you did the coaches. Your top 5 Blue Chipper coaches: Belichick, Carroll, Reed, Tomlin, McCarthy, 7-3.
Right.
And 2 of them have played each other already.
Yeah.
Usually that number is maybe even be 8-2 or 9-1. The next group you had the Red Chippers, Harbaugh on the Ravens, Zimmer, Sean Payton, Quinn, Rivera. I would not have put Sean Payton in there. I think you're more loyal to him because of the past history, because he won a Super Bowl. I get it. I just think that team's sloppy, and I think they've been sloppy for a couple years now. I think Gase is a really good coach. To me, he's a top 10 guy now.
I think Gase is a really good coach. I don't disagree with you on that. I think Gase is a better head coach. Look, he got some help with Anthony Lynn last week.
Oh my God! Poor Anthony. Anthony should be 2-0.
Anthony should be 2-0, and the problem with Anthony is he doesn't realize he should be 2-0.
No, he's like thinking the kicker. It was the kicker's fault.
We talked about this on the podcast on Sunday. I hate this mentality. We're going to get in range to attempt the field goal. We have to get in range to make the field goal. So he has a 44-yard kick. He lets the kid hasn't made a 44 in the first.
He called the timeout with 20 seconds left when they got the first down.
Right.
When Rivers should have run up, spiked
the ball.
You have one more play, then you use the timeout. You got to get to like the 38.
And that adds to more of this problem that we're having, is this game management, situational football. You see it in college, the Tennessee-Florida game. Horrible situational football by Tennessee. You see it in pro football. I mean, Sean McVay gets away with one on Sunday where he has the ball, and he's got like about 2 minutes to go in the half, and he tries. What does he think? He have some explosive offense? He tries to get it going. He can't complete incomplete pass. Stops the clock. They run, call timeout. Then he gets a sack, strip, fumble. Now the Redskins get the ball with 1:17 to go, and they could come down, and they can't. They obviously can't do anything with it. But there's a chance they would have done that against New England. There would have been 7 points. The game management, to me, when I watch the game from coaching standpoint, isn't really. It's not complementary football. That's been a big issue too. You can't run the game just like, okay, we're going to call offense or defense. You have to manage your offense to your defense, and we're not seeing that.
I think it's tough. I hate to give the benefit of the doubt to new coaches, but I think it's got to be tough. There's so much going on those last couple. The whole game, you're so locked in. You're trying to, and then those last 3 minutes, it's almost like I've always said they should have the 14-year-old kid who's obsessed with Madden standing next to them. But that Chargers situation was a perfect example. Rivers was mad too because Rivers got mad twice. He yelled at the coach when they called timeout. And then he was screaming at Koo to get off the field before Miami bailed him out with the timeout.
Right. They would have had 12 men on the field.
Yeah.
They would have.
Again, it's a runoff and it's done.
Right.
Then you look at the difference with the Patriots where Brady, I don't know if it was a good play or not, or he just had so much confidence at the end of the first half where he scrambles.
Right.
Gets tackled with 14 seconds left. Boom. Gostkowski, field goal with 2 seconds left. I mean, it was almost like he knew, it's fine if I get tackled. It probably wasn't the greatest play, but they're so good at that. They practice it. That's why I think my blue chip list, I'm convinced of it. There's 3 really good coaches in the league, and I'm putting Andy Reid in there. And then after that, then there's a whole section of other coaches. Regular season Andy is
there's no doubt. I mean, his game plans have been great, but I think the gap between Belichick, Carroll, and Reid and the rest of the league is really becoming wider and wider. And I think that's what you're seeing. And these owners, they want to hire these guys to call plays because it dresses up and it looks good. That's why I like Zimmer. I mean, Zimmer runs the team. He's tough. He tries to match his offense to his defense. It's not happening in football. It really hasn't been so far.
I like your dude. You called it out. You were telling us he was going to be good, even after they started trading dudes in Buffalo, McDermott.
He's a good coach. He's trying.
Good. That team, both games,
they had a chance to win that game. I mean, if they can complete that pass at the end of the game, it was there. They could. I like what he's doing. It's culture. I see what they're trying to accomplish. You can see the plan where some of these teams, like I hate to pick on my man McAdoo. No, I really don't. But you see no plan. He's just calling plays. He's playing Madden. Meanwhile, the Bills are trying to run a team.
Well, especially when you go into the actual season with no running backs, the Giants. We're all aware of Paul Perkins at this point.
Yeah, I
don't know what they're looking at when they're looking at that one, but it just seems like it's easy to get running backs. And by the way, Deion Lewis is the 4th-string Patriots running back right now. Go get Deion Lewis. He's good. If you can keep him on the field for 3 months, that's a real guy.
Yeah, well, but look, they have institutional problems at the Giants. This isn't just about a player. And I think, the whole game plan last night about not protecting the tackles, to me, it was really bad. I was talking to an former NFL head coach, and he's like, hey, as long as the Giants keep running those protections, no matter who they put on the field, it will work.
Yeah, they were leaving that poor left tackle by himself.
Because they think oftentimes, and this is what the guy said to me, he said, look, they think they're in Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers can get out of all the trouble. Whereas Eli, a good stiff breeze, he's going down.
I think the biggest thing I've learned in the first 2 weeks that the one thing I've learned as I hit my late 40s is just admit defeat with things you thought going into the season. I would always get stubborn and try to hold on for weeks and weeks. I thought Atlanta was going to have a hangover from that Super Bowl. You made a great point on the podcast, on your podcast on Sunday. It was just like, Atlanta is one of the 2 teams in the league that can say we're throwing on this down and still complete the pass.
Right.
And, Devontae Freeman, who I thought was fantastic last year, and he's a real, legitimate A-list running back. They know who they are. They're going to be able to score points. That doesn't seem like there was a hangover from last year, and I think they're in the top 3 or 4.
I think they are, and I thought there would be a little bit of a decline between what Matt Ryan, he was sensational with Kyle Shanahan.
I was with you with Sarkisian
and they've come out and now they've played. Look, they just smoked Green Bay. Now Green Bay didn't have Mike Daniels in the game.
They caught him on the right night.
Right, and so can they do it again? I don't know, but this is a good team. Now they lose Vic Beasley for 6 to 8 weeks, so we're going to see how that handles. They signed Dwight Freeney back this week. That could help them. But I think Atlanta is better on defense. They have more team speed, and their offense. If Julio's healthy, they're just really hard to play. They're hard to play because they can play left-handed and beat you. Not
especially
many teams
inside because they're in Detroit this week. That's great for them. They're in a dome. They're going to be flying.
Detroit to me last night was a good team win for Detroit. But if you really dig deeper back, like that game was. I mean, the punt return sealed the game for them. But look, that was the perfect matchup for Detroit. Detroit's defensive ends are good players. Those tackles are bad. The game wasn't going to get away from Detroit the Giants can't score. So
Odell was not 100%.
Odell wasn't even 50%.
Yeah.
I don't know what, they're running, it's remarkable when you watch the Giants. I mean, they don't run anything down the field. They just, like Gruden said last night, they run slants. They have one step slants, 3 steps. That's all they run.
Do we think Eli is past his prime or like legitimately maybe done as an above average starting quarterback?
I think the Giants don't know who they are. The Giants should call John Harbaugh up and say, you know what? We want to be like you. We're going to win with defense.
What are we?
We're going to win with defense. We're going to try to run the ball a little bit. We're not going to expose our quarterback.
Not with those running backs.
No, not with that offensive line. But
Yeah.
the formula really for the Giants to win is they're going to have to find a way to run the ball and win with defense, try to win with kicking game, because they're not going to outscore anybody.
Flacco ball?
Flacco ball. I mean,
Just
that's the only way to protect Eli.
To wing it down.
Do you think Eli's going to? You think he's going to withstand those hits that he got last night?
He took one last night that it looked like
on the completed pass.
Yeah, it was a little reminiscent of the helmet catch, but he took a hit. It was like if his feet had been planted for a split second more, I think both of his legs would have broken.
He's going to go on the road this week to Philadelphia. How are they going to block that front? They're not going to block Vinny Curry. They're not going to block Fletcher Cox. They're not going to block all those guys in Philadelphia. It's going to be a hard thing. Now, maybe they can find a way to do it, but I just think they should change the way they play. They're going to have to figure out. They have no tight end. They have one tight end that can block. When they put Ingram on the field, we talked about this at the draft. He's just a receiver. What does he do for him, really? I mean, I know he's a big play guy, but what is they don't? He doesn't. You can't run the offense.
You always said when you have somebody like him, where he lines up, you know what the play is going to be.
You know exactly what it was
because he can't block.
He can't block it. Gruden was saying it last night on the TV. So
when Gruden's calling out your plays, you know you're in trouble because he barely does anything when he announces
games. And Gruden wasn't
anymore.
backing down on the fact that the guy wasn't a tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, it was part of impressive. I mean, he's right, and that's the way I feel about him.
It's almost like he should be used like Aaron Hernandez used to be used in New England.
Right, and that means you're
H-back.
a 12 team. That means you're a 12 team, and you're moving him around, but he still has to block the backside, and Ellison's got to be – but Ellison is so one-dimensional in terms of a blocker, it just becomes too hard. Then you know you want to get the ball to him. So I would play nickel against the Giants the entire game and blitz Eli and see what he could do.
Can we officially say Denver's the biggest surprise?
Well, Denver's the only team that had 2 home games, and Cincinnati and Denver had 2 home games to start the season. And I think it really helped Denver. Obviously, it helped Denver more than Cincinnati because they were 0-2.
Cincinnati not helped.
But Simeon is going to be a better player at home where the crowd noise is in his favor. And I think when he's healthy, he's a good player.
You believe in Simeon. You believe in healthy Simeon.
Yeah, I don't believe in 16-game Simeon. I like Simeon. I'm not an anti-Simeon. I think Simeon's the perfect middle reliever, can close, but he's not going to be able to close it out. That's the way I see Simeon.
So you didn't believe in Eli. You were born out on that one already.
Yeah.
You believed in healthy Trevor Simeon.
Right.
You did not believe in Doug Peterson.
I still don't.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
You don't believe in Jason Garrett.
I'm strongly.
That was born out.
I'm strongly. We'll talk about this on GM Street today, but I am strongly like the NFC East. Like if there was one blue chip coach in there, they would win the East.
Right. We don't have red chip coaches.
Or
Is
blue
there
chip.
green chips? What's a shaky chip?
Look, I think
vanilla maple.
Yeah, I mean Jay Gruden comes. I mean he looks like he's one of the better coaches in the East right now.
I was kind of impressed with them in the Rams game.
Yeah,
I actually thought he coached a good game in that game.
I thought he did too.
Because I thought the Rams might have been better. The Redskins got the lead. But then they did a couple things as the game went on. They mixed it up on them. They started pounding the ball in the middle. And
I think
smart.
Bill Callahan being on the Redskins is a difference maker because he's so good as a run game guy. And like they ran a couple runs against the Rams that were hard to defend. I think Callahan's really makes a difference. I don't see it in Philadelphia. I think Philly, as the season goes on and people start to know exactly what they do offensively, it'll only get worse.
Ravens D.
Ravens D is legit. I'm all in on the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to be a good team. If Flacco doesn't screw it up and Flacco doesn't try to be too much more than he could, they're going to play the way Jacksonville wants to play without a quarterback in Baltimore. But Flacco can make some more plays.
But they actually know how to do it.
They know how to do it.
It would have been interesting if they played that game over again where there's not the dude deflected passes at the line. Although Bortles, doesn't he get a lot of passes deflected anyway?
Bortles is.
But if you don't have those and they're able to play like a 10-7, 10-10, 9-7 type game. They're kind of built for that. Once they're down 10, turn it off. Yeah, it's over.
I think what the Logan Ryan talked about, he talked about how they know they don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, so when the other team knows this, I mean, Tennessee walked in there and beat them. Significantly won the game. I mean, to me, that's a telling tale. When you lose at home to a team that you play twice a year, that's not good.
Can we say the AFC is better than the NFC this year, definitively yet, or no?
Well, look, the West is really good, and I mean the Chargers are 0-2, and I thought the Chargers would compete for a playoff.
They should have, and they still might. But it's a classic Chargers season where it's like they're 1-4, but look out.
I mean, if Marty Schottenheimer coaching the Chargers, they'd be 2-0 right now.
Right.
I mean, nothing
He's
against
available.
nothing against Anthony Lynn, but I mean, there's sometimes where the coach just makes some like the whole game plan against Denver was bizarre. And then this 2-minute drive down the end of the game, I thought they were really going to win. Let Phillip Rivers win the game for you.
I think San Diego's talented.
They really are.
They will be. There's not a lot of talented teams this year, and if they're not one of the 12 playoff teams, that's their fault. Because you look at the AFC, it's like we got the Pats, we have Baltimore, we have Pittsburgh, we have potentially 3 AFC West teams, and then whoever the hell is going to win the AFC South.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody's going to be the odd man out.
I thought, look, Kansas City is not pretty on defense. They give up yards, but they play really well in the red zone. And then I was at the Raiders game this week, and the Raiders are really good on offense.
That was another thing I've already given up on. I thought they were going to get nudged out of the playoffs, but they're not. They have too much talent.
No, when you beat up on a bad team, they beat up on the Jets. That tells me you're a good team. Like they didn't give the game to the Jets.
Take care of business game.
Exactly.
Kansas City has weapons, which I think is a little different for them than usual. They have. Kareem Hunt's just good. I mean, they had some stat. Danny had some stat in his piece today about how Danny Kelly wrote about the rookie running back boom today, basically. And he was like, Kareem Hunt 38 times when he's basically made 14 of 38 guys miss on like straight up tackles or whatever. He's just good.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, he's out there. You're worried about him the entire time. Kelsey's good. They have real weapons. I mean, I think it's legit. I don't think this is remember back in September when we thought the Chiefs were going to be good? Like, I think this is legit.
Yeah, and I thought that Alex Smith would not play this well, but he's played. I thought they would end up going to Mahomes, but they've played way better than Alex Smith has played way better.
Couldn't you say though he's playing better because he's got weapons?
I think he is playing better because he has weapons, and I think they're finally a team that if they have to play left-handed, they could win. Because you didn't talk about Kelsey, Hill, you can't double everybody, right? No. So you're going to have to take your medicine, and they just wore the Eagles down. Their offensive
Hill's
line.
going to make one mistake, Hill's gone. It was like the Stephen Gilmore and McCourty, like not realizing who, and all of a sudden Hill's running for 80 yards.
Yeah, that was a horrible play. But look, Conley made a play down the field. I mean, they've got guys that can make plays. And one thing about Smith, he can make people miss in the pocket. He got away from the key third down in the game. He scrambles out of it. They had him sacked for sure. He breaks the tackle, runs for first down, and then he's been really accurate down the field. He's been impressively accurate.
Maybe they needed a light of fire under him.
I tell you what, the way he's playing, I mean, look, he could be like, could he be a good player? If he were on the Bills, the way he's playing right now, the Bills probably would be 2-0.
I always love your takes on running backs. You sniff it out. You always know who the good running backs are. So we have Cook on Minnesota looks tremendous.
Yeah, he's really good.
Hunt looks really good. Fournette, I think, is a battering ram. Right. I think he's legit. The one out of the top 4 that I've been surprised by has not made an impact yet is McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So what's going on there?
Well, I think because McCaffrey, right now they're trying to do plays for McCaffrey instead of just run the offense for McCaffrey. And I think McCaffrey has to come in, and it has to be Jonathan Stewart's in the game or McCaffrey's in the game. But when you start running special plays for a guy that everybody knows you're running special plays for, then it becomes
Percy Harvin syndrome
Percy
or
Harvin
Tavon Austin syndrome.
Well, is there anything? I mean, if I was Aaron Donald and I watched Tavon Austin on Sunday, I would just walked up to the GM of the Rams and said, "That's it, I'm done." Like, we try to run a jet sweep with him. He gains -2.
Yeah.
He goes down with one-arm tackles. Like, I can't understand how nobody in LA isn't going berserk over Tavon Austin being the worst player for 14. That's what I get for 14
Nobody
million.
in LA cares.
That's probably true.
I don't even think they know the Rams are here.
But to me,
are we sure Watkins is good?
No, I think Watkins is not. I think Watkins looks slower. I mean, he had 2 catches for 30 yards last week.
Is he like wide receiver Trent Richardson?
And I'm going to riddle you this. Are we sure Des Bryant's good?
I was going to ask you if Dallas has a single guy I should be terrified of.
They don't.
20 yards down the field.
The answer is no. The answer is no.
Isn't that part of the problem with Dak?
That is part of the problem with Dak.
If I know there's nobody that can run past me, it's much easier for me to defend.
Now here's the thing: when they run the ball, they are a completely different team because those skill players on the outside, because of play action, because of all the things they do, they're a whole different team. But if you stop their running game, which the the Giants have been able to do, and Denver did. All of a sudden, they have to win those one-on-one matchups outside, and that's when, Dez was covered. Like, if you watch the tape, Dez had nowhere to throw the football.
Yeah.
It was nobody was open. And Dez is not, for $16 million, it's great to have a jump ball receiver in the red zone, but I need a little bit more than 16 for
This
16.
started last year, though. He wasn't putting up big. You would watch entire Cowboy games, and he would just do nothing.
Looks like he's gotten so big. He doesn't have any burst or acceleration or any change or any change of speed, not change of direction. It's change, like he doesn't have any gears.
Yeah. Are you happy with how the Pats have used Cook so far?
I think.
Or are they still trying to figure it out?
Here's the thing about Cooks. What I think Patriot fans have to understand is Brady is more comfortable throwing the ball between the numbers.
Yeah.
So whenever they get a receiver who plays outside the numbers and makes a living outside the numbers, don't think he's going to have 7 catches for 140. He's going to have 2 for 50, or he's going to have 1 for 30. It's not going to be featured the ball because the ball's coming inside. That's where he makes a living. So they need a threat on the outside. I was actually impressed with Dorsett last week. I thought Dorsett played well.
You're preaching to the choir, brother. I couldn't believe it. I thought it had, with the history of the Pats with speedy receivers that they steal from other teams, it's always gone badly. And this actually, he made a couple of big plays. Brady liked him. Brady went up to him at one point and was like doing the helmet to helmet, slam the shoulder pads thing, which was like his kind of sign of approval.
And I thought, now he's hurt this week. I don't know how badly he'll play, if he can play.
Everyone's hurt.
To me, that's the other problem. We talk about this whole conversation. Like, how do the Eagles have 4 soft tissue injuries in a game? Like, how is it possible to have a hamstring? Like, that would be like the Cavs or any NBA team having hamstring. They don't get it to start the season. Like,
well, usually if you have soft tissue injuries, it's because you're going out too much.
That's
That's
exactly right.
The old wives' tale on soft tissue injuries.
Exactly right.
A lot of hamstring pulls.
A lot of hamstring pulls, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't stretch enough. Okay. Yeah, that's the old,
Right. But we're seeing this. Look at the injuries in week 1. Look at all the you can't have soft tissue injuries. They should not happen. Eagles have 4, 2 of them to corners that really affected them. But going back to Sammy Watkins, I don't see a burst in Sammy Watkins. I don't see an explosive
Their best
player.
receiver is Kupp.
And he's an inside receiver.
He's good, though.
He is good. He catches everything, and they do a nice job of featuring him.
I like him.
But once Goff has to come off to the set or play faster, then all of it breaks down.
Would you cross off Cincinnati and Arizona completely?
I've been since Arizona. They have no tackles. Their tackle situation is bad. They make big plays down the field. And Carson Palmer, I don't see them rallying. I don't think they're good enough on defense to rally. When you go in Indianapolis and struggle to win, I would cross off Cleveland for sure. I would cross off Indianapolis for sure.
Would you cross off? Hold on, I'm going through the list. Would you cross off? See, I wouldn't cross off the Niners.
I wouldn't either, because I think the Niners. Look,
I thought they looked good last week.
When Kyle was in Atlanta, he couldn't run the ball on Seattle last year in the air. They won because Ryan threw the ball effectively. They ran the ball. Their longest pass was 14 yards against the Seahawks. If they don't get better play from Hoyer, but I'm not going to cross them off yet.
Would you cross off the Saints?
No, because
Snead comes back, that'll at least
I
now
think they can outscore people.
Sides.
Like, really, the difference in the Patriot game was the Patriots played better in the red zone. The Saints couldn't score touchdowns. They moved the ball on them. Breeze was good, and then when the game got out of hand, they couldn't play catch up.
I think they did a bad job of roster management with that team.
Who, the Saints?
They have
constantly do.
The Ingram Peterson combo, but then they have this other team going on that they should just be like Breeze should be in the shotgun. They should be airing it out every down. It's like their split personality.
Peterson's complaining because they aren't featuring him. They were the only team that wanted him.
Right.
Like, what's he complaining about? Like, and to be honest with you, talking to people around the league, when they want the Saints to play Peterson. Like, everybody wants Peterson in the backfield.
Right.
Because they're one-dimensional, and that's all they can do.
Would you cross
Is he
off?
the Dwight Howard of the NFL?
Dwight Howard had a better career. He really did. Like, Dwight Howard was like almost the MVP and like took a team to the finals. What did Peterson do? Peterson won my fantasy team in 2007, the title. This is better. Bears, would you cross off?
Yeah, I crossed the Bears off.
Because no receivers. I don't know how you come back from that.
Look, their first 3 drives against the against the Bucks. They went interception, fumble, interception. Like, I mean, at what point? And Trubisky, the game's 26-0 at the half. Trubisky didn't get in the game. Like, at some point, why don't you put him in the game? The Bears have no chance. No, I would definitely.
I would go the other way. If they don't have receivers, maybe you don't put him in the game. I don't know who's getting open for him.
But he needs reps. I mean, he needs reps. You might as well get him back out there.
Okay. Would you cross off? I had one more. The Giants.
I crossed the Jets off.
Well, the Jets.
I'm sorry, Mickey. I'd cross the Jets off.
I crossed them off in June. Would you cross off the Giants? You can't in that division,
you
right?
You can't because they're really good on defense. And I think they didn't have Jenkins last night. I think when they play Philly this week, they could win the game. I mean, look, Carson Wentz, 2 more fumbles last week. He had another interception at the end of the half that ended up being a big play for him that bounced off the receiver. I mean, he's prone to make, and if Doug wants to keep throwing the ball 50 times, then teams like the Giants are going to be able to score on them because they're going to benefit from the mistakes the Eagles are making. The Eagles have to go into the game and manage their team. They have a big back, run the ball. Don't put Wentz in a situation. I don't
think the big back touched the ball last week.
He caught a ball in the flat for a 1-yard catch. That's all I saw. I think he had one run.
He had 0 fantasy points last week, which is a problem if you started him because getting a 0 is bad.
When you sit in the meeting room on Tuesday and say, okay, we're going to go play the Chiefs. What do we have to do? The first thing you say is we can't make this a 50-pass game because if we try to throw it 50 times, we're going to lose. And that's what the Eagles try to do. I mean, to me, it's like that's the problem I have. On Tuesday and Wednesday, you have to set up the game plan to give your team a chance to win. And I'm not saying you got to go establish the run against that team. You don't. You have to give your team a chance to where you can run it enough to keep them off balance, or else that crowd noise is going to kill them. I mean, if Wentz couldn't get away from pressure like he does, he got sacked 6 times in the game. He should have got sacked 12. The left guard for the Eagles, I don't know what game Doug was watching, but the left guard couldn't block Chris Jones, okay? He couldn't block him, all right? So at some point you have to say, maybe we should make a change at left guard, okay? It's a Hawaiian name. I don't want to butcher it and say it bad because I always do. But anyway, they should have pulled the left guard out. Like at some point, what game are you watching? Now, if you're McAdoo and you're making checks all the time, then I understand that. Okay, I'm working on my crossword puzzle during the game. But if I'm watching a game and there's a left guard that can't block the guy, I got to change the guy.
Yeah.
At some point, why don't you do that? That's what drives me crazy.
Have you seen enough from Pittsburgh to feel like they're Pittsburgh again, or is there anything
not Pittsburgh yet. They're not.
I don't feel like they're Pittsburgh
yet.
They're not Pittsburgh
yet. They've won 2 games.
I'm not crossing them off. They're a top 10 team.
They've won 2 games, and it hasn't been. They fought to win 2 games. I mean that Browns game, they blocked the kick for a touchdown. They struggled to move the ball, and they started talking about how good the Browns were on defense.
Yeah, okay.
And then the Ravens went ahead and just ran it down their throat.
Right.
So wait a minute, timeout.
Settle down. Last question. Malcolm Butler. Is he at the stage of his Patriots career? If he's Billy Bats, is he at the bar? There's like a lot of people in the bar, or is it there's just 5 people left and now he should be really concerned?
I think that tape on Sunday, the Patriots-Saints tape, was about who's been practicing and playing well and who hasn't. And Malcolm hasn't been practicing or playing well.
I've seen this play before.
Right. Alan Branch hasn't been practicing or playing.
I've been to this production.
This is all...
Oh, wait. You have a contract. You want a big contract and you're in the last year and you're not playing that well and maybe your head's not totally in it. You're gone.
Yeah, I mean...
He's going to get traded.
I don't know if he will because here's why. It's hard if they don't have a third corner. Rowe, they have Gilmore. Who's the third corner? Joseph.
What about Jones?
Jones played well. He made that one play in the back.
But you think Belichick cares? He's all about like who's buying in this year.
I think they're trying to get him turned around.
So they have it. So at this point, does Belichick take Malcolm Butler? Does he have the one-on-one meeting and be like, "Hey, dude"?
I think Malcolm needs. I think the volume of what Malcolm does needs to get reduced, and maybe having him play this role reduces the volume and helps him out. I tell you, the other guy that would be if they had a better left tackle. Nate Solder hasn't played well all season. In the first 2 games, Nate hasn't played particularly well. Now he missed all of camp, but I think that game was a reflection of, hey, fellas, the guys who earn the right to play have to practice and play well.
And you could see, because I always go on Patriots.com and watch the locker room video after, because I'm a loser.
Yeah.
And, when the guy,
the Robert
Brady
Kraft show,
Kraft, he's shaking hands, and Brady comes in.
You think that cameraman was told to focus on Kraft?
Start out with the Krafts. Brady says his things, and then Belichick gives his little speech. And it's basically the same speech every week, but you can kind of tell how he felt about the previous week from that week's speech. And he was like, hey, that's the recipe. We got a lot of work left. This has got to be an all-week thing. That's what we did this week. every day leads to Sunday. It's what we do during the week. He gave one of those. So it was clear like he felt like before that KC game that people weren't as focused heading into it.
I think the whole thing for him is stringing together 3 or 4 good practices in a row, and I don't think they had done that prior to the Kansas City game. And so now the last week, that's the recipe, and then using that as a backdrop, he'll keep telling the team what they need to do. And if Malcolm doesn't play well, he won't play.
I was getting emails that from Eagles fans that Butler for Kendrick, that guy Kendrick on
the Eagles. Yeah.
The pass rusher?
No, he's a linebacker. He plays
he's
inside
like a linebacker.
Played really good last week against Kansas City.
I don't know who that. Not familiar with this word. Michael Kendricks.
He makes a lot of money, and I think the Patriots have done their homework on him, and I don't think they're interested.
Okay. But you think Butler's going to get traded?
No, I don't.
Who do you think Butler's going to get traded to?
Take Frazier.
To the Ringer?
Yeah.
I'm very worried for Malcolm Butler.
I think they need Malcolm Butler.
I like my Super Bowl hero, Malcolm Butler. I want him to stay in the Patriots.
I want a ring for Malcolm, but I think they need Malcolm to play at a higher level.
Okay.
And so does Malcolm Butler.
What's my panic button for Gronk this week?
Well, he says he's okay on the groin. I don't know what to say.
It would be nice if 75% of the time he got tackled, it didn't lead to an injury.
Yeah, that would be really good.
It just seems like every time he goes down with 2 guys on him now, he's slow to get up, something happens.
And he's like double the size of the guy tackled him, too. It's ridiculous. I don't know.
There might just be too much wear and tear.
I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall in the Saints team room, and I was worried about Gronk, but they have this rookie 47 from the University of Florida. I think they drafted him in the 3rd round. Like, at what point do you say, we should put him on Gronk? Like, when does that make any sense to you? We have Kenny Vaccaro. We'll put him on. Then we'll put at some point. No,
that's your red chipper coach, Sean Payton. Just give up. Just retire it. It happened to Jeff Fisher. Coaches lose it. It happens.
I think sometimes you're right. Money spoils all of us.
I watched Goodfellas on Friday night. I want to talk about that after we finish the podcast. Guess what? It's still a phenomenal movie. It's just loaded. It's so good. It is so phenomenally good.
You can watch it repeatedly and still find something in it.
I found like 20 things.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know how. I would like to have a copy of the original draft to the final draft of that. Because
do you know who he lost the Best Director Oscar to?
No.
Kevin Costner for Dances with Wolves.
Really?
Yeah. Scorsese lost the Oscar. When you watch this movie now, I defy anybody to watch Dances with Wolves on cable and compare the two and tell me how.
I will be the first to admit I've never seen Dancing with Wolves.
It's definitely not as well directed.
Are you watching The Deuce too?
Of course.
Is it good?
It's good. A lot of dicks. Should be some dicks flying left and right.
All right, I have to get on that.
Just get ready mentally for it. Mike Lombardi, GM Street on the Ringer NFL show, and then we've been putting videos up, and then on Fridays we're messing around with Instagram stories, which I really liked what we did this week, where you're just throwing out Friday opinions on various things.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're multimedia. We're turning into a multimedia.
I hope so. I like it.
An asset.
I like it.
This is what in Goodfellas when who is Paul Sorvino's character?
Oh, the boss. What the heck's his name? Paulie. Yeah, Paulie.
When he didn't embrace cocaine,
yeah,
his business really fell behind. This is our cocaine, Instagram. You got to embrace all the new stuff.
I'm all for it.
It's great.
I'm all
we got to get there.
I don't
Instagram
understand
stories.
it, but I'm all for it.
we just tape it and put it up. You
I don't care what we do. I love it.
Michael Lombardi, thank you. All right, thanks to Lombardi. Thanks to Nathan Fielder. Thanks to Gillette. I mentioned this earlier. A Gillette razor blade is thinner than a single brain cell. That's a product of many brain cells at work, namely the thousands of men and women at Gillette, always working harder to make your shave better. And now you can get Gillette blades for less at GilletteOnDemand.com. Gillette, the best a man can get. Pricing applies to select products and is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Thanks also to Hotel Tonight, the app that helps you find amazing hotel deals up to 7 days in advance, perfect for an unexpected trip or spontaneous staycation. Play it by ear, knowing you'll have the freedom to grab a great place and price. All it takes is 10 seconds, just 3 taps and a swipe. Grab killer last-minute deals by downloading the Hotel Tonight app right now. Don't forget about TheRinger.com. You can find my football column there every Friday. Don't forget about the Ringer Podcast Network. Don't forget about TheRinger.com. We are back on Friday with a celebrity. You might have seen his picture on my Instagram. But he's who's coming up on Friday. Until then.